Well, we've arrived. It's been quite the homecoming. Hi everyone, Editing Maya here. So last week I got really excited to share some actual sailing stories with you after so long spent in the boatyard. So I jumped right ahead and went from the boatyard in the USA to sailing on Hoob's boat in the Netherlands. And I kind of glossed over the whole story of actually getting to the Netherlands and, perhaps most interestingly, seeing our old boat for the first time in about a year. So this video is going to tell that story. So we're going to back up for a moment and bring you with us to the Netherlands and to our first sight of Magic Carpet 1 in quite a while. So why are we keeping two boats halfway around the world from each other? Well, when Magic Carpet 2 is finished, we will sell Magic Carpet 1. But for now, she's still our home while we balance our time between Europe and the States as visas allow. And we do still want to take her on a few more adventures. But there's also some work we have to do on her. Is it smart to have two boats across the world from each other, both in need of work? Maybe not, but that's what's happening. Now, time to head to Europe and see what we have in store for us. We made it. We are in Zurich. Although not for much longer, we have assembled all of our things, pulling all these random pieces of Magic Carpet out of storage in preparation to return to the Netherlands and to Magic Carpet. Feelings are conflicted. I was very sad to leave our boat in the States, but now that I'm actually here, I'm really looking forward to seeing Magic Carpet again. We arrived to our rest stop for the night, so we're in a small town. It's called Limburg an der Land. It's very cute, and we're in a little guest house, and I'm quite happy. Check out the guest house, it's really cool. Guest house.
Yeah, what do you guys think about these deck beams?
No matter how many times we make the trip, there's always a bit of culture shock going between North America and Europe. This guest house may literally be older than America itself. But we didn't linger. The next day, back on the road, a non-stop route to Magic Carpet. We arrived in the evening and got the keys to the trailer where we'll be spending the next few weeks as we get Magic Carpet 1 ready for another adventure. We were filled with nervous excitement. We haven't seen Magic Carpet in so long. We were curious how we would find her. We made it. Here we are, back with Magic Carpet. Emotions, feelings about the whole thing are all over the place. When we first arrived, it was so exciting to be back. It felt like another kind of home. We know people here, we know where everything is, we know the little streets and the little bike paths, and that's a nice feeling to sort of be settled into a place and know what you're returning to. So it felt really good. But on our first sight of Magic Carpet, that feeling, did it diminish? What did it do? It became dampened by the fact that Magic Carpet is quite damp. Europe has had a really wet year. You may remember there's all these stories of flooding from Germany, and that has extended over a large part of the northern part of this continent, this really extreme wet weather. And so even though Magic Carpet was inside, this shed is not particularly well constructed or waterproof or dry. So humidity was just everywhere, and mold was everywhere, and we now have to clean everything. The whole boat smells overwhelmingly like vinegar. I mean, just vinegar everywhere. I do hope that the smell will fade eventually, but the smell of vinegar is better than the smell of damp, mildewy mold, so I'll take it. So as soon as we arrived, we started pulling things off the boat. I spent 12 hours in the laundromat cleaning every single fabric thing, because I had actually left the majority of my possessions and belongings on board Magic Carpet, and a lot of my nicest things that I own were on board Magic Carpet, so all have to be demolded. So this is not the end of the world. It's just kind of a thing that we wish we didn't have to deal with, but we have to deal with. So we're doing that now. We're doing it. The other thing that has slightly dampened that excitement upon returning back is the discovery that we may have more work ahead of us should we choose to do it. But I'm going to talk more about that later. Hey Deanie, your thoughts on coming back to Magic Carpet? Oh no! Those are your worst faces.
Exactly.
The subscribers get to see your worst faces. Normally I only see those.
Oh, no, it was really, really frustrating and disappointing and all of it together. Not only was the last thing that we did on Magic Carpet take all the bedding off the cushions and wash it and really clean and dry everything and wash everything, we come back and we start exactly with the same task again. We are very short on time, and we have done quite a bit of boat work already this year for who knows. So we thought, hey, I'm in the mood, in 1 month I wrap it up, I got the power, and now we just got this setback, which is really annoying. So it's already 3 days we're cleaning, and the end is in sight. The
end is in sight, that's right.
The end is in sight, but it's gonna be another 2 days of cleaning, and after that the boat works continue.
So yes, even though there was some initial frustration, we were determined not to let it dampen our overall mood. Life isn't only about boat work, it's also about enjoying the present moment, the small elements of delight that can always be found somewhere. So we set off to collect a few moments of happiness. One thing which has brought me a great deal of joy since arriving back here is realizing that there's a community garden quite nearby where you can go and pick whatever you need and you leave some money in a little box. So we're going to go and we're going to pick fresh herbs and green things to have, and I don't know, it brings me a great deal of joy. Aladino hasn't been there yet, so I'm going to show him and you at the same time. Welcome to the garden.
Wow, check that out.
That is a huge
Vegetable. What is that now? Like a mix of kale and carrot?
I don't know.
flavor?
Somebody is gonna know what that is. That's a giant thing. Look, here's my finger for reference. It's really big. Perhaps one thing Aladino and I haven't done a good job at in the last season is showing you the moments of joy unrelated to boat work. Because of course there have been many. There have been dinners with friends, walks in the woods, daily exercises, small getaways, and excursions. We've focused the channel on the boat, and only the boat, because we felt it was better to have a theme. But the fact is, it's impossible to do this kind of work so consistently, without also purposefully finding moments of joy outside of it. After all, what is the point of a boat, if not to adventure and explore, and seize upon the great beauty of the world and all it has to offer? So, bouquet of herbs, and all these veggies. Check out this cucumber. Isn't that incredible? All right, so it's been a few days since we turned on the camera, because it's been a few days of real uncertainty, also a fair amount of frustration dealing with all the mold that we found upon return.
Yeah, totally. It was 4 days at least of just cleaning up. Every single item had to get out of the boat and sprayed with vinegar, and many things we tossed because it will be more of a holiday boat and less of a home. We're transitioning the home to the big blue water boat that we have in the States now.
Yes, which I think, we've mentioned this in other episodes, but we should reiterate our plans for this boat, which is that it will become a little bit more of a holiday boat, at least for the next year or two. We anticipate it will take about 2 years to finish the refit in the States. And while we work on that boat, we do need somewhere to go when our visas expire in the States. And once the new boat goes into the water, we will be selling this one, because then that will really become our full-time residence as we begin our journey around the world as slowly as possible.
Exactly.
So this boat will be sold in the near-ish future. We're also going to be using it for about a year or two. And so as such, we want it to be in decent condition, not only for ourselves, but also for the next owner.
In the best condition that it can be,
Yes.
being 45 years old still.
Yes.
That has led us to extending the refit period in here.
It's led us to a difficult decision, which is part of the reason why we haven't turned the camera on for the past few days, because we've been deliberating a lot about how to move forward, and we haven't really had any clear direction to share with you. But we've finally reached our decision, and we're taking on a rather big project that we weren't expecting to take on, but we've realized we really should. And that project is
Removing the teak decks. So, a teak deck is wonderful, but after 45 years, usually they reach their limit.
teak decks 45 years ago were almost exclusively screwed down to the underlying deck structure. This means that there's hundreds of little screws that go through the teak into the deck, and that means hundreds of different ways for water to get into a deck. And 40 years down the line, it's nearly guaranteed that water will have found its way in somewhere in all these possibilities. So our deck is no exception. And
Totally.
This is what we had started to notice and experience last year. And one of the most telltale signs, well, first of all, if you splash the deck with water and then it dries, you'll notice some sections that take much longer to dry. It'll just be like this little wet patch that stays wet for quite a while after all the rest has dried. That usually means that it's soaking up water underneath the teak.
That's the first indicator.
That's
Yeah.
one indicator.
But for us, the main reason is because we have a mahogany cabin top, and the water can travel underneath the teak in between the fiberglass sandwich that is the deck and the teak. There can be water, and then the cabin top can suck water from there, and that's what we've started noticing here, and that is actually what led us to peel off the varnish, letting it dry completely. But now we would be doing a lot of work of re-varnishing the cabin top, but the issue of water coming from underneath would not be addressed. So that is why we are taking this extra step to actually have a perfect job done on the mahogany cabin top.
Yes, this is kind of insurance going forward, because it would be super silly to go to all the effort of revarnishing the cabin top, only to kind of have it destroyed
from underneath.
From underneath.
In a little. Yeah.
Now, I know that this might seem sad to many of you because, of course,
is sad.
It's sad, but of course, a teak deck is a wonderful component of a boat. It's super aesthetically pleasing and it's lovely to walk on. But the stark reality is that a 45-year-old screwed down teak deck is not an asset to a boat. Anyone who knows anything about boats will very quickly tell you that. Now, in modern days, teak is glued onto the boat without any screws. This means not only is there no way for water to get down into the deck itself, but it also means there's no way for water to travel underneath the teak in between the deck and the teak because it's a layer of glue.
And even if it would, it wouldn't be much of an issue. There can be water. It's not soaking through the foam core, making the deck soft. It's not going further into the interior. Mm-hmm. If you can have the fiberglass fully sealed, there could also be water. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a much, much better method.
Yeah. So our plan right now is to simply remove the teak deck. And the easiest option would be to remove it, seal up all the holes, make sure that the core isn't too wet anywhere, and if the core is wet, because our deck is constructed of a layer of fiberglass and then foam core material and then another thin layer of fiberglass. So if that foam core material is wet, then that might need replacement in certain sections. But if it's not, and in all likelihood it's not too bad, I don't think, the foam core.
We'll do... We'll examine the lowest spot on the boat and in the windows that is next to the cockpit combing to either side, because that's the deck slopes in this direction and the shear also slopes, so that is the lowest spot. And if water collects, it's there. So we'll do inspection there. If there is, we'll open up, replace the foam, dry it, and re-fiberglass.
Yes.
But yes, the two options that we have ultimately are painting non-skid and having the first window ever with a non-skid and without a teak deck. No?
No.
Well, many have a problem with their teak deck and they should do something about it. But I haven't seen one with non-skid yet. And if
the
we
one
were...
that we met in the Rhone had non-skid.
Oh, that is right.
Yeah.
Wow, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and it looked great.
Yeah, no, that did look great.
Yeah.
So that is one option that we have. But the other option that we have is more expensive and more time consuming. So we don't know yet if we'll be able to do it or not. We'll try our hardest. And that is actually recycling our teak and gluing it on without screws.
Yeah.
Because this is real old growth teak. One should try to reuse everything to make it last as long as possible. Not if you have 3 millimeters, of course, then it's done. But we still have, from what I can see right now, good 8 millimeters, and that is what yards use today, if not even less. So if we'll come around to using it again, then that is the favorite scenario, but we'll see if that will work or not.
Yes, because essentially in real time, we have about a month to do this work. That's not a lot of time. Mm-hmm. So we have to see what we get to. But for sure, we're not going to throw this teak away because it is still in really good condition. And even if we return next time, we could put it back down, or even when it comes time to sell the boat, perhaps the person who buys it would like us to install a modern teak deck just by reusing the old teak, but without screws. So we're going to keep those options open for the moment, but I think the decision to remove the teak in the first place is a really good one that's going to really protect the longevity of this boat. So many vindas have fallen prey to rotten cabin tops, especially up at the front here, and there's many reasons for that, but one very common reason is water under the teak decks. So.
Yeah, it's really one Achilles heel of the vindas. I mean, don't get me wrong, after 45 years I haven't seen a teak deck this nice still, and even the caulking is still original. that really holds up well. It is quite remarkable. But the problem being the mahogany cabin top that can soak up water from underneath. That is really the issue. It's not actually the wet deck. Many boats, they have a wet deck and they don't even know.
Yeah.
Just if it drips a little bit on the overhead, that's not going to kill the boat. So it really is about the mahogany being able to soak up water. That's why we're addressing it.
Yes. So with all that said, we've got a lot of work cut out for us, and this, I think, will turn into an interesting project to record on video, the removal of a teak deck and whatever we decide to do after that. So let's get started with removing the bungs. I've already started on this side, but we're gonna continue.
Let's do it.
So there's a lot of work ahead. And as usual, we're gonna bring you along for the journey as we fix boats and enjoy life along the way. Hi everyone. I wanted to round out this episode by sitting down and having a quick chat about what's going on in the boatyard. So we have more work than we really anticipated doing in the form of taking off all the teak decks. We weren't really planning on doing that, but it really makes sense to do so, and so we're going to go ahead with it. And that means we have more boat work than we initially thought, on top of all the boat work that we just completed on our other boat in the States. Now, I know that whenever we start a big project, we'll get a lot of comments from people saying, like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you have to do this, or man, are you regretting buying this boat, or are you regretting doing all this work yourself? Things of this nature. Oh, water's boiling. I'm just making chamomile tea. 1 second. There's something so satisfying about making tea with flowers. It's so beautiful. I just got those from the community garden as well. I love it. Anyway, back to my point. On paper, all these events may look like something dreary or negative, but I hope that this video has not come across as either dreary or negative, because Aladino and I don't actually feel either of those things. I mean, sure, we could have done without the mold, but all the rest of it we feel really calm about, and it's not really sitting too heavy with us. And there's a reason for this. I mean, first of all, we don't mind doing boat work, right? Like, it's not everyone's cup of tea, for sure, but we wouldn't be doing so much of it if we didn't actually, kind of enjoy it in a way. There are ways to go about sailing that don't involve doing year-long refits or years-long refits. But there's another reason why we feel happy and fine about it as well. And that reason is that we're simply quite happy and fine in life. This was not always the case. I was never too unhappy, but I was always chasing things. I was always seeking a different horizon. I mean, that's why I did things like move halfway across the world and live on a small sailboat and all of this. But also, it had to do with a lack of the little things that actually lead to a fulfilling life. What's outside your window is not the most important thing to lead a happy life, I have discovered. So the things that make me consistently happy are the little things that I can add into my life no matter where I am. And it's the things that people always talk about, but at least for me, I had a hard time believing until I realized that, oh, there is something to this. It's things like eating nice food, exercising a little bit, talking to people that you love. That is so important. I phone my friends and my family all the time, and that is 100% necessary. I mean, talking to people is one of the best ways to lift yourself out of a bad mood. And then there's the extra things, like listening to really nice music as you're cooking dinner, and reading a really good book that inspires you creatively or artistically or in some fun way. And the exercise, that's really important. Like, I can't overstate how important that is. Getting enough sleep. It's all these little things that don't seem like big things, but that really make day-to-day life so enjoyable. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that we don't also want to pursue the future and to create a future that's even better than the present. But I think a big lesson I've learned is that slowing down and enjoying your present is certainly important. I mean, obviously, everyone knows that logically. It's just harder to put into practice, I think. But little things like visiting a community garden and making some tea and making some food with fresh vegetables, all those things, they contribute a lot towards everything else. And those little moments of joy in the day-to-day life make larger disappointments much easier to cope with, to the fact that they're barely disappointments anymore. So all this to say, we've got a lot of work to do, but we're quite fine to do it. And we are living a life that we're quite pleased with, and I'm very content, really.